So you're thinking of moving to Spring Valley here in Las Vegas? Well, in this video, we're going to go through the pros and the challenges of living in Spring Valley here in Las Vegas. But let's get after it right now. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about moving to Las Vegas, living in Las Vegas and the Las Vegas real estate market, go ahead and hit subscribe, tap that bell for notifications, and you'll be the first to know for everything that's going on here in Spring Valley and the entire Las Vegas area. Hey, my name is Anthony, and I'm a former attorney turned real estate professional, and my team and I get phone calls, texts, and emails every day from people just like you looking to make their move to Las Vegas, and we absolutely love it. Look, if you're looking to make your move in the next 9 to 90 days, go ahead and shoot me a text, give me a call, heck, book a Zoom. It's really easy. There's a link down below in the description. Because we would be more than happy and would love to help you make your move as smooth as possible. Let's talk about Spring Valley. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the goods and all the bads of Spring Valley. Okay, forget it. That was my one shot at being funny. But we're gonna really dive into Spring Valley. So Spring Valley here is a suburb in Las Vegas. It's not part of the city of Las Vegas. It's not part of the city of North Las Vegas. It's not part of the city of Henderson. The rest of the Las Vegas area is governed by the Clark County Commission. Spring Valley is one of those suburbs that falls within that unincorporated Clark County area. And it is super close to the Strip. It's one of the a little bit more mature areas, one of the areas that were first developed along with the Strip. So, you know, the Strip, which as you know is where 40+ million people a year come every year to enjoy our entertainment, our food, our gambling, and all the awesome things that the Strip has to offer. And it also employs tens of thousands of people here in the Las Vegas area. So Spring Valley was originally developed alongside the Strip because, you know, all of those workers and people who work on the Strip and supporting all the activities that go on in the Strip needed a place to live, and Spring Valley was one of those original areas where housing was developed. So it's a little bit mature area, but it is a fantastic place to live. There's a lot of pros, and there's a couple challenges to living there as well, and we're gonna go through those right now. So let's go through our first pro. So our first pro is that Spring Valley is not a master planned community suburb. Okay, what do I mean by that? If you go to a Summerlin or most parts of Henderson, you're gonna find that they're dominated by either in Summerlin, which is just a master planned community, or most parts of Henderson are master planned community after master planned community. Now, Spring Valley was developed before, for the most part, the master planned community wave. So what you have is a lot of diversity in housing. You have just an eclectic mix of housing, a mixed use area. So it was all governed and grew through the use of zoning regulations and zoning laws. And that's how the suburb developed. We need housing, we have an area that's zoned for housing. We need commercial, there's an area zoned for commercial. So it's a more eclectic use. You don't have that homogeneous vibe that you would get in a Summerlin or a Henderson. And for some people, that is fantastic. They don't like everything having a rhyme and reason, everything matching very closely with a master plan. They like that neighborhoody vibe. You know, you go from one street to the next and it's a little bit different. So that's one of the really cool things about Spring Valley. I would put Spring Valley on the continuum of suburban, Summerlin, to urban, downtown. I would put it towards the urban side. So it's more urban-y than suburban-y, but the pockets of development, the pockets of housing You get that suburban feel because in most cases, even though there's not a master plan, they were developments. So you had a block that is a development of certain types of houses. So you'll notice that this area, this part of Spring Valley, the houses are very similar in build because they were all built by the same builder. They're similar size, similar that. Now, there's other parts of Spring Valley, which is very cool because you have bigger lot sizes and a lot of custom homes. You have some in the couple acre range. You have equestrian in some parts of Spring Valley. You have different custom home sites. Now that's not to say there isn't master plans in Spring Valley. There are. In fact, there's two of the toniest and fanciest master planned areas are Spanish Trails and Spanish Hills. Spanish Trails is a master planned area right on Tropicana, right in Spring Valley, that has some fantastic, beautiful homes. What you will notice with those homes is they were developed by a developer. So you'll find that more uniform construction inside of Spanish Trails. So the whole area of Spanish Trails has that uniform feel, but it has all the benefits of being in Spring Valley as well. And those homes are still very desired. They're much pricier than a lot of the other areas of Spring Valley. And then you have Spanish Hills. Now, Spanish Hills butts Spanish Trails, and it is on a hill. And what that is that's where all the custom homes are within the Spanish Hills, Spanish Trails network. So inside of Spanish Trails, you have homes, gigantic homes going $10+ million here. Now those because it's on a hill, most of those homes have amazing strip views, amazing views of our mountains as well from some of them. So these are just big mansion type homes within Spanish Hills. Fantastic neighbor. Now, of course, you also then have right next to that another development, and those are more regular type homes built by a developer. So if you want that more neighborhoody, more on the urban side of the spectrum, Spring Valley is a fantastic place to look at. And another pro is there are fewer HOA areas in Spring Valley. So without the master plan, you may not have an HOA. So if you were just governed by zoning and you have a number of custom homes or single development homes, you're going to have the ability to have pretty much unrestricted access of what you do on your property, as long as it's within the zoning ordinances here in the county. But if you want to do something a little bit different with your property, in a master plan community, you may not be able to do it. But as long as you have a home that is not within an HOA, this is an area for you to look. If you want to paint your house blue, there's areas in Spring Valley where you can paint your house blue. If you want to add on a different type of shed or a different work space behind your home in your yard, it's possible that we can find a piece of property that is not controlled by an HOA and that is within the proper zoning that you can do something like that there. So you do get a little bit more freedom because there are more properties there that are not controlled by an HOA. So if you're looking for more freedom and more opportunity to do what you want to do on your property, then Spring Valley might be a great spot for you to look at. We can find something for everyone to match exactly what you're looking for. If you want that, we can find it. All right, let's move on to our next pro. All right, our next pro is that the diversity of home prices here. Again, because it's not all cohesive, master planned community, we have homes that range from the 250s still, all the way up to, as I said before, in the Spanish Hills area, the $10 million plus homes. So there's a lot of opportunity for you to find what you're looking for, what fits within your budget, what fits in within your lifestyle within the Spring Valley area. So it gives us a lot of options depending on your requirements to find you the perfect home for you. The per square foot price is a little bit lower than in some of those master plan communities. Now in some parts of it, it's a little bit higher because you have that custom development. You know, if you're looking in a Summerlin or most parts of Henderson, the homes are gonna be fairly tightly ranged within their per square foot price. In Spring Valley, that is not the case. You can find things from the low you can find sub $200 a square foot range all the way up into the $400+ a square foot range. There's a lot of diversity in the home prices there, but there is a lot of inventory in the lower price and more affordable areas as well. Which leads us to our next pro. And our next pro is your accessibility to the Strip. Look, you are as close to the Strip as you can get without living on the Strip when you live in Spring Valley. You are never going to get onto the freeway to get to the Strip, which is one of the reasons why it continues to be a fantastic place to live if you're working in that Strip area. If you're in the hospitality industry, if you're in one of the businesses that supports the hospitality industry and all of our casinos and resorts, Spring Valley is a fantastic place to live. Look, as I tell you in all my other map videos where I go through and show you where everything is, Spring Valley is super close, but Las Vegas is not that big. You can get across the entire city. I don't really care where you're going from. You can get from point A down here to point B way up here in under a half hour, pretty much no matter what time of day it is, you can do that. So Las Vegas is not that far away, but if you do want to live close to the Strip and you do work on the Strip, then you know what, Spring Valley, you're 3 to 5 minutes away from work instead of 25 minutes away from work. That's a great pro. As well, if you're moving here because you want to take advantage of all that the Strip has to offer on the regular, then Spring Valley is a fantastic place to you. It's pretty nice to be able to jump in your car and be on the Strip within just a couple of minutes versus having to make a little bit more of a trek to get there. So if you want accessibility to the Strip, Spring Valley is a great place for you. All right, let's move on to the next one. The next pro is that you have a ton of 24-hour options. 24-hour food, 24-hour shopping. You know what? Vegas is a 24-hour town, but it's in that center area and out. Once you get to Summerlin and Henderson, it starts to slow down and you may not get as much 24-hour activity. But in Spring Valley, where you are that close, where there is so much going on. Look, if you work graveyard at one of the hotels and you're working from 11 o'clock to 8 in the morning, you want to come and be able to go to the store, well, they need to be open. So you have a lot more 24-hour facilities within the Spring Valley area than you do in some of the farther out suburbs that are more controlled and farther from the 24-hour action of the Strip. So that's a great pro, and one of the reasons why a lot of people who work in the hospitality industry and work those 24-hour hours, you want to be able to do all of the things that you need to do 24 hours a day that works around your schedule instead of the schedule of the store. Let's move on to our next pro. And our next and final pro is the pro that I put in all of these. Look, it is so important. It is the taxes here. As I've told you, and if you've watched all my other videos, I hit this one over and over again because it is that important. Look, we pay 0 state income taxes. If you're coming from California, if you're coming from New York, if you're coming from Illinois, if you're coming from a place where you have to pay 10 to 14% of your salary to the government, here, because of all that activity on the Strip, because of the 40 million plus tourists, those tourists, those activity, that pays for our state income taxes. And I want to thank you if you've come here as a tourist. Because of you and all of the great things we have to offer and you taking advantage of them, me and you, hopefully soon as a resident, aren't going to have to pay state income taxes. It's like getting a 10 to 14% raise overnight. It's just a fantastic benefit and one that can't be overlooked. And I have to at least mention it in every pro and con video that I do on the different neighborhoods here and suburbs here in the Las Vegas area. When you have 10 to 14% more of your money in your pocket instead of the state's pocket, you get to spend that on the things that you want to do with it. You want to take a trip? No problem. You want to buy something new? No problem. That's your money, not the government's. Okay, let's move on to the next thing, and that are, what are some of the challenges of living here in Spring Valley? So let's talk about the first one. And the first one kind of mimics what we talked about originally and as a pro. And that is that mixed use, that lack of entire master plan for the area and the more neighborhoody vibe. If you're on that side of the coin where you need more of everything having uniformity, everything being a certain way, then Spring Valley, or at least parts of it, the non-master plan community parts of it, the non-Spanish trails, the non-Spanish hills, Spring Valley may not be your cup of tea. But that's okay, we've got what you're looking for in other places. But Spring Valley may not be it. As well, if you don't want to live close to industrial and businesses and commercial activity, Spring Valley might not be the place for you. But, like I said, if you like that urban lifestyle, that more urban lifestyle while still getting the suburban feel, Spring Valley is a fantastic choice. So let's move on to our next potential challenge. There is no next challenge. We're gonna leave it at that as just the only challenge, okay? That's about all I can say as far as challenges of living in Spring Valley. If you like a little bit more action, it's a fantastic choice for you. If you work on the Strip, it's a fantastic choice for you. If you like that more urban side of the suburban equation, then it's a fantastic place for you. Spring Valley has it all. Las Vegas, I believe, is the true new melting pot for America. We have a mix of everything, and whatever you're looking for, you can find it. And Spring Valley is the epitome of that. Spring Valley is fantastic. I think it's one of the places that people kind of overlook because they get drawn into Summerlin, Henderson, because that's where all the activity seems to be when people talk. But Spring Valley has so many benefits to it that it cannot be overlooked, and I think you should add it to your list of what you're looking for and where you should at least potentially look, especially if anything that I talked about as far as why resonates with you. All right, I'm done talking about Spring Valley. I'm done singing. That one is for sure. I appreciate you guys. I really do. And I'd love for you to continue to watch. So make sure you subscribe, tap that bell for notifications. And if I don't see you in the neighborhood, I'll see you on the next video. Thanks.